Welcome. I'd like to call to order the Board of Adjustment meeting of January 3rd, 2019. And if I forget to say 19, please correct me. Welcome, and I want to wish you all a Happy New Year, and glad you all were able to make it in. I know that some people probably had some problems getting here, but I'm glad to see you all. And I have a few little warnings that I always give, or little comments that if you have your cell phone with you or other devices, please turn it on the off mode if you can. Sometimes the vibrate and some other things still make noises, so if you could turn it off, that would be good. Also, if you look at your agenda, it gives you all the other things for addressing the Board of Adjustment that you need to, if you're the applicant and when your case is called, you come forward and give your name and address and then do your presentation of your application. The board members will have questions, and there might be protestants or people who wish to speak, and those time limits are in there, and we request that the presentation be 5 minutes, and of course the board members and different people will have comments. If you're in a group of protestants, if you could single out, maybe do it as a group, that would be best. But anyway, if you haven't already filled out, it's nice to have, you need to have your request to be heard before the Board of Adjustment, especially if you're not the applicant. So we're ready to receive the minutes. Is that correct?
Yes, and we do have one change I need to go over on the meeting schedule for next year. We had voted on June 20th for the meeting date, and we had May 24th for the filing deadline. That date had to be changed to the May 17th date to be able to get notices mailed out.
The June 20th is our meetings that we set. We set the meetings, the public meetings for the next calendar year, and the pre-filing is an administrative matter. It's not really something the board has to set. It's an administrative handling of how you pre-file and to meet your meeting deadline. So I need a little motion just perhaps to correct the minutes, to maybe strike out the date for the pre-filing deadline.
Make a motion to strike May 17th as the filing deadline.
May 24th. Strike May 24th to the May 17th.
Okay, so it says 17th.
Or to strike the reference to the filing deadline altogether, since the 24th is what was originally approved by that board.
Strike the whole date of the filing deadline.
And then approve, need to be separate motions, or can we approve? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's,
And then to receive the minutes for, what meeting was that? Oh, December.
January 6th? Or December 6th.
Minutes of the Board of Adjustment.
I think your hesitation there was because the minutes actually say January 6th. So with the correction that this says December 6th,
Yeah. Correct.
I will second
The
that
top
motion.
of the minute.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and now we're ready to vote on the motion. The minutes have been received. Do we have any continuance requests or withdrawals today? I don't show any on our agenda. Are we aware of any, or does anybody want some due to weather constraints or other things?
We do have one continuance request, item number 1, case number 14545, request continuance to the January 17th meeting.
I need a motion.
Motion to approve continuance.
I'll second.
Vote. Signify by voting. Motion passed. It's continued. Anybody from the audience wish to make a continuance request while we're here before we start our agenda? Okay, so we're ready to start on item number 2.
Item number 2, case number 14552, request for a variance to maneuvering on street right-of-way in the R1 Single Family Residential District located at 1901 Northwest 18th Street.
Would you please?
My name's
your
Eric
name and
Grody.
address?
Did you need my address?
Yes, I do. I need everything.
My home address is 10501 Pine Ridge Road, Edmond, Oklahoma, 73025.
And you're the applicant?
I am.
Okay. And this is a matter that we need you to present your application, please.
Okay. What we have is this is the St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Church and Rosary School campus, which is on 1901 Northwest 18th Street. I am the general contractor. We recently added a new cafeteria and kitchen for the Rosary School, and the architect has placed the dumpster enclosure for this cafeteria on the north side of it, which is on 19th Street. And so the dumpster enclosure is on our property, but the trash truck will have to pull in at an angle, grab the dumpster, and pull out. And I believe the code is, or it's against city code for a trash truck to maneuver on a city right-of-way. And along 19th Street, per my plans, I think we have a 28-foot wide right-of-way. We have a very large easement. And so it is designed, the trash truck will be totally off 19th Street, but it will sit in the right-of-way, pick up the trash dumpster, and then it will pull out on 19th and go. So a couple minutes once a week is our issue.
You all appeared before the Board of Adjustment, or somebody appeared before the Board of Adjustment to get the dumpster moving to a different location. Is that correct?
No, we want a variance to keep it where it is. We want to be able for a trash truck to maneuver on a city right-of-way.
Okay. Okay, I see.
We want to keep our dumpster where it's at.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that site is very compact. We don't have a lot of room, and keeping it where it is would definitely benefit the cafeteria.
Okay, I thought there was on October 5th, 2017, we met, and I thought we agreed, you all had made an application to move the dumpster to a different location, and you're here today to get maneuvering right away. Is that correct or not?
There was an application last year for the parking lot over on the 18th Street side was on the right-of-way, and that was maneuvering on the right-of-way. If it had been discovered at that time about the dumpster, they could have applied for it all at the same time.
I see. So that's what they approved
That's
in
where
October.
you're getting.
Okay, I see.
This
Now I
is the
understand.
total second one, yeah.
Questions from the board or anybody?
I'm satisfied that it's going to be off of the street most of the time and on that right-of-way, so I don't think there's a particularly egregious encumbrance here. I can support the application.
Got a
I'm the
motion?
same. I don't see any other option really.
If there's no further comment or anyone
Yeah,
wants to
does
speak?
anybody want to be heard? We didn't have anybody sign up, so.
I'd move to approve case number 14552 for the reason that it meets the statutory requirements for a variance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We need to cast our votes. The variance to the maneuvering on right-of-way passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item number 3, case number 14553, application for special exception to allow a mobile home to serve as a temporary second dwelling to relieve a medical hardship in the AA Agricultural District located at 10101 South Cemetery Road.
Is the applicant present?
Katrina Kidd, 10101 South Cemetery.
I I need you to present your application, please.
Okay. Most of my family above me has passed from the same condition, so it's been on me to take care of my brother for the last 4 years. He hasn't worked in the last 4 years. He only has 30% heart function. His heart's too weak to even have a defibrillator placed, so to have family nearby, should he need anything, is super important for his health. That would be really hard to do if he was at a different residence or some other place.
You don't have to completely give the medical conditions. I believe you provided that to the board, to your clerk. Is that correct?
Yes, we got that.
That's all I have. I mean, the hardship would be obviously relocating him and somebody else to take care of him.
Can you present, where will you be locating? You have already located the mobile home already, is that correct?
Yes.
And this is for a special exception, and there are certain requirements that need to be met. And it says that she'll be allowed to accessory to a permanent single-family detached residential structure, and you have one, is that correct? It's further down the street, is that correct? Because I went out to that location. Yes. It's quite a bit away from the mobile home that you placed.
It's at the bottom of the hill, yeah. The original mobile home for that property is not quite in the center of that 5. It's at the top of the hill, and I'm probably 300 feet. The second mobile home is about 300 feet from there.
The location shall conform to the setbacks and heights and off-street parking, and if it were approved today, it's for a certain period of time, and I believe it was requested at 3 years. Is that correct? Is that what you requested?
Yes.
After that point in time, you would have to reapply, or if it stops, then you no longer have that. It also provides she'll meet all the city, county, health department standards and regulations. And we can also condition, if necessary, to include any extraordinary setbacks, landscaping, installation of utilities under G. The board has some prerogative on how that can be approved and certain additional requirements we might want to make based on the application. Okay. And at the end, that the use shall terminate at any time when the hardship that led to the granting of the special exception ceases. And that we have to ensure that it's in harmony with the applicable zoning districts and plan and utility loading, access signs, and other necessary, and that all reasonable precautions are taken to existing and anticipated development from hazardous and noxious conditions. If necessary, to protect the public, to protect the use of neighboring property from potential loss of use or increase in land and value, the board adjustment may require additional site-proof screening and other landscaping. That's within the memo that's of open record, and anybody here could look at the memo online if you have not looked at it. There are several people who are going to be talking after you to protest, and we have a protest to this by 3 individuals, and then we have, I think, one of the individuals here and another person here to talk on that. I don't have any other questions except if the board members would like to have some questions before we hear the protestants.
Just a couple of questions. So just so I can fully understand this application, there's an existing structure there now, correct? And then who's living there now? Your brother's living there now? Mm-hmm. And then is anyone living with him? I'm assuming some people are living with him?
His wife and my youngest child.
Okay. And then for the additional structure, who will be living at that structure?
That's me and my husband.
Okay. And does that structure currently exist?
Yes.
On the property? And how long has it been there?
August.
Okay. And were you told, I guess, by someone that it was okay to put that there?
No. I was not. I was unaware that I wasn't allowed to do that.
Okay. I thought I saw somewhere that I guess whoever you purchased it from said that
Until I got cited, I wasn't aware that it was an issue.
Okay. I think that's all I currently have.
Any other questions of the board members? We have some individuals here who have signed up to speak. Jeff Blythe, I believe is your name, could come forward. Oh, would you like to have Richard come first so we could have Richard Hendricks? Is that your name? Are you going to be a spokesman for Jeff, or are you going to have speak separately?
And myself.
Huh?
And myself.
Okay. Please present your project.
I'm Richard Hendricks. I live at 13130 Southwest 100th Street. I live right down the street from the I don't know her name. I'm sorry. I speak on behalf of 4 other people that's not here and we are sympathetic towards her brother and the hardship that she's asking for. But at that time when she was asking for it, they were all living in the same mobile home together. And we don't understand why her brother can't just live there in the new mobile home that they've installed. That's a much bigger mobile home. That, and it also allows more financial burden and maintenance to them to keep up with the home as they struggle now with the skirtings missing on the home. There's constant trash out in the yard. There's vehicles broken down in the yard with smashed windows that's boarded up, and I have photos of all that. This also is a private road that we all share. There's 6 of us out there, and we all have to pitch in to maintain that road, so that'll cause more vehicles coming up and down the road, more wear and tear on the road, and they haven't paid for the prior year of the road maintenance. We have one neighbor that's helped them out, and they still owe that neighbor the money for the last year's. So we're already coming into a new year that's going to need to be upkept on the road, and there's at least 5 to 6 vehicles there all the time, up and down, up and down. So that's another concern that we have. They also have the biggest curb appeal as you come up 100th Street. As you can see on the map, that south side of where they're at, when you pull in, there's a mobile home there already at the very end, and then as you come up, there's another mobile home that they're trying to keep. Well, combination with the trash, the vehicles, the more people that's going to be coming in and out, the less value of the homes also this will create. And just 2-3 lots back to the north of that, a home was built there, and he had his appraised, and he's one of the ones that signed the petition. And it actually decreased his appraisal value as well because of it's in sight, it's in view of his home. We also talked to David, I believe is the owner, about what his intentions were when he did buy the place, because we all talked about maybe doing a HOA with restrictions.
That doesn't have anything to do with the application of the other mobile home down the street as to where they're currently living? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Where he was currently living before they put the second mobile home on the dwelling, he said that he was going to move that mobile home out and either build a house or put a double wide right there. And the reason why we all try to talk and communicate with each other so we don't have some kind of problems like we need putting 2 mobile homes or RVs or et cetera, stuff like that, so we could have some kind of guidelines and restrictions. And he did say that he was going to remove the mobile home. So we didn't feel like there was any action to, let's do a homeowner association. We talked about doing the road. And there again, he didn't follow through with paying with the road as well. Like I said, it will affect the appraisal of all the homes in the neighborhood. And that's about it.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have, if any other board members have questions. But before I do, I wanted to clarify, are you talking that Southwest 100th Street is not a public street?
That is correct.
It's not a dedicated street?
It's a private road, not a
That's a
public.
private road.
Okay. But Cemetery Road is a dedicated street, is that correct?
Cemetery Road does, yes, that's how we get onto 100th Street.
Right.
Correct.
And I have actually gone out to that location, and I didn't see anything obstructing the placement of the mobile home, which was close to the corner of Southwest 100th Street and Cemetery Road. I don't know the footage or the setback, but John, have you looked at it?
I went out and took a look at it. It meets setbacks from front and side, so no problem with setbacks.
There was nothing in obstruction, and I didn't see anything. Maybe a car was parked, but I didn't see anything obstructing the view. I didn't see any trash. I didn't see any debris. And I noticed there are a number of mobile homes in that area, so it's not unusual. And I saw accessory buildings on the north side. I thought I saw a couple accessory buildings down the street on the north side. So I'm not sure I understand what your objection is as far as the mobile home seems to be fairly new and in good condition. And
May I speak?
Yes.
I'm just referring strictly to the existing mobile home, not the new one that they've added. I'm not opposing the new mobile home that they have added. I'm opposing the old mobile home that's there now.
Can't do anything about that one.
That's giving them two dwellings on 1 5-acre tract, where our 1 5-acre tract, one dwelling per 5-acre tract community, and they're trying to make it a 2 5-acre tract dwelling.
You understand, sir, that this is for a special exception for a limited period of time for
Yes.
medical hardship.
I do.
And that the documentation has been provided to the clerk, and that the clerk has determined that the conditions for this special exception have been met or recommends, and that it would be approved for 3 years. At the end of 3 years, the mobile home goes away unless there is an additional application for an additional temporary time. It's not a permanent location or a permanent structure. I'll defer to other board members to ask some questions.
Well, how I see it is it gives them 3 years to remove the other structure. I mean, gives her brother time to live here, and if they need another 3 years, then he can live there some more, but still, in that 3 years, they can remove the old one. And, they have a much nicer one left after that.
I agree to the extent that that's within the applicant's plans. That wasn't ever really presented in the application, that they would be getting rid of the second structure and eventually being in compliance, which is why it was one of my hesitations with the application. I'll wait until if there are any more questions for this protestant, but I think there are a couple more questions for the applicant that I would have.
I'm going to call on the applicant to respond after all the board members have asked questions.
Sure.
So, the protestant. So,
Yeah,
we're going to call the applicant back to respond to the statements of the protestant.
I think a couple of the points that were made by the protestant are valid, and then some of them we can't really help. For example, if everyone was living in the mobile home, the existing structure, and now there are just two, but they're the same number of people, then it's going to be the same traffic that everyone's used to. It's going to be the same wear that everyone's used to. If there are additional people living there, then that changes the calculation. The home value, unlike a variance where we typically don't consider home values, the zoning ordinance here specifically discusses the decrease in the home value. And I think that means that we can factor that in, or the value of the land. And then the other, I think, element that you hit on was that it doesn't adversely affect the neighboring properties, which I think your argument would be that it does.
And may I present these photos?
I think those were in the category of things that I don't think were within our purview. So the trash that's existing and things like that, I don't think that having two structures would change that. It's the same number of people living there.
We're addressing the additional mobile home being at that location for a medical hardship, and not some other complaint you may have regarding the keeping of the land or whatever of the original mobile home, as Mr. Burchett said. It's a new mobile home. It seems to be fairly attractive. There is no debris around it. If someone has a medical hardship, most likely they're not running around or traveling much or doing much activity because the people are taking care of them. The family would be. I agree that I don't think the other complaint is relevant to this application with regard to the mobile home app for the medical hardship. But
As far as trash complaints like that, I would direct them to the Oklahoma City Action Center. There is ordinances against it, and they can come out and look at it, and if there's a problem, they'll cite them for it.
if you want to submit the photos, you had not done that, we would give you an opportunity this time to present the photos if you would like to.
Okay. I guess I'm just a little confused. I thought this was about they're having two mobile homes on one dwelling, and that you guys are talking about this is just strictly approval of the double wide in the front. It has nothing to do with the single wide in the back that was existing. Is that what you're saying?
It's still allowed to at one piece of property.
Right. And my argument is not only are we a one dwelling community, but how it does affect everybody else's value at the home, at their homes. As they come up the street, you can see both mobile homes coming. As you're heading up 100th Street, you can see both mobile homes. You can see everything that's out in front of it. You have a wide view of that, even off of Cemetery Road, and even the homes back to the north there. And he's one of the ones that got depreciated in his appraisal because those homes are in sight. The mobile home that they brought in, the new double wide, is not going to affect their appraisal. It did not. It was the single one. And the one that's right across from them now, he's moving that out in the summer and he's going to build a home, is what he said. So that'll basically put his mobile home left there in a two-dwelling, or in 1 5-acre tract, two homes in 1 5-acre tract.
I understand your point. At least my understanding, and I certainly could be corrected here, is all that we're deciding here is whether they can have two. It doesn't matter for us particularly which one it is,
right?
Where it's located, as long as it complies with the ordinance. Whether new or old, it's two, and that's it.
Correct.
I think that was Mr. Privett's point as well, is maybe there's a way that if the applicant expresses that they intend to move one of them, probably the old one, that factors into our analysis.
Okay.
If they don't, that also factors into our analysis. If it's permanent, the intention is for both of them to stay, and that factors into our analysis.
I understand, sir. May I ask why the 3 years then?
That's just what the code provides. That's what, we're very limited powers, and that's what it says. It's up to 3 years. And that's not to say we're going to grant 3 years, but it's up to 3 years.
Okay.
The medical documentation has been provided to the staff that would support a 3-year variance for medical hardship because of the medical documentation.
Okay.
So if you had like a broken leg or something, you couldn't walk, and you only had a temporary period of time, rehab for a year, then that would be a year for a recommendation. But the applicant has submitted medical documentation. I would also like to ask the municipal counselor's office to comment on what we're looking at for today to review.
So the code outlines specific conditions and that the board can place on the special exception. So like the site proof screening or landscaping requirements, things that might help to mitigate any kind of adverse effect on the surrounding neighborhood.
Okay, so meaning like a fence being put up on that side.
Yeah, the site-proof fencing, and this yes, you could require that. In this particular case, I don't see that site-proof fencing would add anything to, would help out in any way. If you wanted landscaping to be added, plants and some other landscaping to be circular around the mobile home area or something like that, we could look, perhaps the board could look at requiring that. Is that correct?
Well, because we all share the same road, it's just them and the neighbor to the north. And like I said, he is going to build him a home there next year is what he's telling us. And I'm sure that he'd probably rather see a fence than, the trash or anything else that goes with it. I'm pretty 100% that it's what he'd rather see, if that's possible. Maybe a nice, pretty 8-foot tall fence to look at, because everybody that drives up that road sees everything on that side.
I'm talking about the mobile home itself, because that's what we'd be looking at in
Yes.
terms of what's being added. We wouldn't try to change what's in the particular existing mobile home. We'd be looking at what we're approving as to what would be required to add that second one.
Right.
And if you don't mind, if you would introduce your pictures.
Okay.
And we will then call on the applicant to respond, if you
Okay.
don't mind.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. We will need to make copies for the applicant or something, or the applicant will need to see them as well, I'm sorry, before we take them. Do you have extra copies, sir? Yes. If we could have a set, and if you have one to share with the applicant, that would be very...
Were there any other protests before we hear from the applicant again?
We had two. I had. Let's see. Were you speaking for all three of them? There's a Doug. I thought you were speaking for Doug O'Donnell. Are you speaking to?
I just wanted to say I've been out there 18 years. We've never had more than one home there. They bought.
Sir, could you just speak into the microphone?
We need you to.
They bought this new home.
If you just give us your name and address, although you have
Doug
filed
McCullough.
something.
I'm his direct neighbor, just west of him, 13100. The gentleman in question here, the Hardship, I've spoke to him several times. He told me 6 months ago that they were going to get a double wide and that he was going to live in this one. And this is after I talked to David, and David said, yes, we're going to put a double wide up front. And I said, well, I've been out here a long time. I'm pretty sure we can only have one. He said, well, I'm just going to try to fly under the radar. And I was like, okay, I don't think that's how it works, but you could go ahead and do it. I am sympathetic to the Hardship, but they've all lived in that tiny little trailer for how long, ma'am? 5 years. Now they have a home twice as big. Why can't they all live in that one? You know what I mean? It's twice as big. There's just as much room. I mean, there's much more room there for the people to live. That home's been out there. It's 18 years old. And honestly, I live right behind them. I don't know if you drove all the way up the road, but between my property and theirs, and you said this didn't really matter, but it's already very trashy. And my concern is if the people that are healthy move out and move up there, and this gentleman's left in this one by himself, how much worse is it going to get? And if he's in that such bad of a condition, why is he going into the new home? You know what I mean? Why do they have to have two? They have twice as much room. And I mean, they're already having issues, like I said, keeping up the road, paying for the road. There's no skirting on the existing trailer. The old trailer, I mean, it's a cause for concern for me. And I don't understand why they need two. If they've all lived in this one for 5 years and now they have one twice as much square footage. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I thought, I didn't mean to not call on you. I thought that Richard was talking for all of you, but as a group. So we have 3 people who've signed up, And Richard, you were speaking for Doug. Doug, is that correct? Or who? Okay. Anyway, we've got everybody who's signed up who's been heard or had a representative talk on their behalf. Is that correct?
Unless Jeff has something to add.
I'm Jeff Blythe, and I live on the north side and to the west of them. Yeah, we just had kind of an order. Richard was going to kind of lay out our argument for this, but all I would say is, I know it's a 3-year temporary, but my understanding is once you go through this process this first time, that it's pretty much filing some paperwork to continue it. So my concern is how long will this temporary go on for? I really don't have an issue with temporary being truly temporary. If we know that in 2 years or 3 years that mobile home will come out of there and it'll be a single dwelling 5-acre tract, then I personally don't have an issue with that. I haven't spoke to them about that. I don't know how they feel about it. That's my personal feelings on it. As far as the road goes, some people have pitched in more than others have, and I'm not saying that they owe me a bunch of money or anything like that, because it's not a lot of money, but it is a considerable amount of money to maintain that road. When I moved there 3 years ago, that road it's about 1,400 feet long, and it was mud with 2-foot ruts. And there's only 6 of us there, and 4 of us have laid out about $12,000 fixing the road to where it is now, and it's still not great. So we still have that issue there, and if they have 2 mobile homes on there with more traffic, someone's got to help pitch in, and I'm not saying that they can't, but I kind of agree with them that if they can get by in a single wide before, and now they have a double wide, why do we need that? If it's temporary, fine. 3 years and it comes out for sure, I don't have an issue with it. I like my neighbors. I really don't like being here, being at odds with them, but I'm a homeowner. I put a lot of money into that house that I have. It was a foreclosure, and I got a lot wrapped up in it, and so, you kind of draw the line somewhere, and this is where I'm drawing it. So,
Thank you very much.
all right, thank you.
Now, I need to have you respond, please.
Okay. As far as the road, we have, back when we first got there and they first started the road, we did. My husband was laid off shortly after that. So the second time, we were not able to pitch in. As time goes, we can. If you would just let me know.
Could you please speak into the microphone so we all can hear you? Thank you.
This picture, we did fix this. It's a skirting on the original house. It's weathered, and it's hard to stay up. Every time the wind blows, it does come back down. This was after Big Trash Day, where we had cleaned up the land and put all the extra wood and stuff out there for Big Trash to pick up. We do have a white pickup that is just a farm pickup. It's to go from, it doesn't leave off the main road. It stays on the private property to go from my house to his house. He doesn't have a driver's license. He doesn't drive himself anywhere except to get to me and back up the road. So that was the white pickup. I also have a teenager, so that the extra cars that they see are her friends. They don't stay there. They don't live there. They're visiting my teenage daughter. That's going to happen whether she's in my trailer or the old trailer. The reason we have 2 separate trailers is we are 2 separate families. We kind of want our own privacy and space. I don't smoke. He is a smoker, and for our own personal reasons, that was why we want our 2 separate spaces. I mean, cooking dinner, what we eat for dinner are 2 separate things.
And your care and keeping is required to help him out because he cannot do it on his own?
He has good days and bad days. Like I said, he hasn't worked in 5 years. When we first got there 5 years ago, the plan was and still is to move that trailer. That first
Talking about
year that I lived there, everybody above me passed away. I had 3 family members that also helped care for him at that time have passed away. So it was left on me. That was why, that was what happened from that first year when they all asked what our intentions were to what happened now. We do not plan on keeping it. The men in my family don't live past the age of 40, 42, and he's 38. So in 3 years, he probably won't be here, and it won't be an issue. We've tried working on keeping the trash up. My husband works out of state. He comes home like 5 days every 2 months. So it is me and my brother that clean up the property, and it's hard. Also, a lot of the trash comes from neighborhood dogs emptying my trash every week and dragging it here and there. It's 5 acres. We do the best we can, but it is difficult to do both. The skirting, we're paycheck to paycheck. It's been there since August, but it's coming. I've replaced the majority of my household. I left for my brother because they have no way to get that themselves. So it's a slow process, but it is a process that is being worked on.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
I did have one question before you leave. I think one of the keys here is when this can be in conformance. So it would be, or in conformity, which would be, when can we have one dwelling there? When do you foresee that happening? I know you've mentioned there's been plans for years apparently to move the old dwelling, and that hasn't happened
we
yet.
just, when we first moved there, the trailer was barely livable anyways. Our original plan was to build a home and move that out, and the oil field crashed, and that is how we make our money. So we went from that to an hourly paid job, and that got put on hold for 4 years. Where the oil field went back up, he went back to work. That's how we got the double wide. The double wide's only been there since August, and
So this was a point that I had that I think Mr. Blythe pointed out, which was my interpretation of this code is that it's intended for temporary use only. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't seem like this is a condition that's temporary. And so by granting this, I think when you come back here in 2 years or a year or 3 years, nothing would have changed. And the board, whoever comprises the board at that time, will come back and look at this hearing and see that nothing's changed and want to grant the same variance for another 3 years and then 3 years after that.
the change is in his condition and how he is now, where he's at now. My brother will not be here in 3 years. The doctors, I could have doctor's notes that will tell you that he started heart failure and liver failure 8 months ago, and he was told if you don't follow to the letter what we tell you have to do, you won't be here in a year. And he's not able to do that, if that makes sense. His health will decline. He won't, maybe he'll be here in 3 years, and I'll thank God for that, but it's not looking like that's going to be the case.
So I certainly sympathize with you, and I feel cold even talking about this subject, but for our purposes, I think we have to get to the bottom of this. Are you saying that once the expectation is that second dwelling is not going to be removed until he passes?
Either he passes or his condition worsens to the point where someone has to be with him 24/7, and then I will find a way to move him in our existing home, should that be the case.
Okay.
Because it's a very real possibility.
Okay.
We need to have the photos returned, please. Thank you. Any other questions from the board of the applicant?
Yeah, just to kind of put out where I'm standing, I'd be comfortable with a variance for a period of around a year. I could maybe get on board with, a special exception for a year, maybe 2 years. But given that there were plans to move the original structure at some point, I think it's probably possible to do that, given an appropriate amount of time. That's kind of what I'd be comfortable with, given the protests and the elements that we're required to meet by the code.
I would be in agreement with a year. I think that this is a bad situation, and I would be in agreement for a year.
She should be responsible for an application fee every time, right? Like if she comes back a year, it'll be another $1,500.
Yeah, if you grant this for 1 year, after 1 year, the
Next
mobile home
year,
would have,
again.
one of the mobile homes would have to be removed or come back
here.
in to the board for another special exception.
Yeah, I was, kind of with Sam, with 2 years seemed like a good, middle ground. Not a good situation either way. But, like I said, not quite, the 3 years does seem like a little long. And I can see, I totally sympathize. And I know, and like I brought up earlier, I think the intention that you have would be to keep your new mobile home and then, eventually get the other one out of there and improve things. 2 years is fair to me, I think, just kind of a compromise.
Before we take a vote on this, is there any, do you want a continuance to visit with the neighbors before we vote to the next meeting, or do you want us to vote today on this? So that it sounds to... Okay, so we will take the vote today. I will have an
I'd move to do the variance for 1 year.
Okay, we have a motion for a variance for the second dwelling, the mobile home for medical hardships, special exception for 1 year. Do I have a second?
If it's denied, is it automatically continued, like planning commission, or is...
The motion just needs 3 votes either way, to either up or down. If the board were to be split 2-2, then it would be automatically continued to the next meeting.
So maybe if we could get, I think it was Richard, right? Would you all, I know you mentioned that you'd be agreeable to a shorter term as long as it's temporary, at least that's my understanding, that you wouldn't oppose something that's temporary. Would you oppose a 2-year special exception?
I would have to have somebody approach in response, because we need to have the record. Also, the use of the mobile home shall terminate at any time when the hardship that led to the granting of the original special exception ceases. So at any time it ceases, the mobile home would have to go. You understand that, is that correct?
So if we...
You need to speak up as to who you are.
I'm Jeff Blythe again. If we agree that 2 years would be acceptable and this would not be temporary, at the end of those 2 years, how would this process work? Would they have to refile, or is it this final after 2 years that it goes away?
Yeah.
They can refile after 2 years.
And part of that process, would we be all notified once again?
Yes.
So in essence, the only thing that's changed is it's gone from a 3-year temporary to a 2-year temporary.
Correct. But if something happens before the end of the 2 years and he passes, they no longer have that right to occupy that second mobile home or have that on the premises. So that would end the use of that second mobile home. And I didn't hear any recommendation for landscaping or anything else or other additions to the mobile home, so we're not entertaining that today. So
I would say that whoever makes up this board in 2 years, when this, if the application is refiled, would listen to this hearing, and I think there would be a lot of scrutiny in the future for granting another special exception.
And we have a motion on the floor as a year. No second, we have a motion.
If there's a motion on the floor for a year by year, I would say let's vote on that. And then next year, we can take into consideration her brother's medical situation. And, you know, if we want or need to extend it by another year, then that can be done as well. I personally would rather do that than do every 2 years.
Every time she applies, though, that is costly. I'm just letting you know. The fee for the application is what, John?
$300.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was 1,000. Okay, so yes. You're saying you're okay with a year or two, or did you say?
Well, I don't think that we're accomplishing much going from a 3-year to a 2-year, unless it is a flat-out temporary, and in the 2 years it goes away. So I feel like going to a 1 year at least gives us a little bit more to go on here.
So part of my question with 2 years was, I think that would be a generous amount of time within which to find something to do with that first mobile home. 1 year, you kind of need to make sure everything's moving pretty quickly. 2 years, you should really be able to get something done. So that was my reasoning behind 2 years.
Yeah, I agree. I think 1 year is awfully speedy, but it's not going to do any of us any good to come back here every 2 years and get a new variance applied here.
I'll withdraw my motion and do 18 months.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. We had a withdrawal, then now we have a motion and a second for the special exception for the temporary second dwelling for 18 months. So we have a motion and second for 18 months, and now we're ready to take a vote.
That'd be
Okay.
acceptable.
Thank you. Let's vote, everybody. Ready? Okay, the variance is granted for 18 months.
Item number 4, case number 14554, request for a variance to the minimum height of 8 foot for a residential entryway sign in PUD 1613 district, located at 6134 Northwest 164th Street.
My name's Jeff All. I live at 900 Corbett Drive in Norman, Oklahoma, and I'm here on behalf of ARIA Development for a PUD residential development that they have at 164th. The request for variance here is twofold. One, on a residential entryway, there's currently allowance in the code for a sign identifying the development on either side of the entry up to 8 feet, or one in a center median up to 4 feet with 2 sides. The second is sign code does not allow signage above right-of-way. So on the first item, one of the things you see in the photo is that. So sorry, I'll go back. This rendering, is this just going to cycle? This is perfect right here. So this is actually a photo of the existing structure that was built for the entrance into the residential development. This is an actual photo, not an architect's rendering. So in order to meet requirements for landscaping on either side, there's obviously landscape here. There's not much room to put a sign on either side of the road. So the proposal, or the request, I should say, the applicant's request, is to actually add letters to the band at the top of those 2 existing structures that simply say Brookfield Estates. So it'd say Brookfield on the top, Estates on the bottom. So it would be, the top of those letters would be 18 feet instead of 8. So instead of building an 8-foot sign or wall on either side, adding additional structures to the entrance, we would simply use the structures that are there. So it would be a variance to the height. So the height of the top of the letters would be 18 feet. Secondly, as you can see in the photo, those existing structures straddle the sidewalk, which is city's right-of-way. The sign code specifically says we can't build a sign on the right-of-way. These structures were approved for the development when it was built, so the developer feels it more prudent to use those existing structures rather than building new. But if we put letters on there, technically it is a sign and it would be above the right-of-way. So the request is height variance and to fix them to a structure that is currently over the right-of-way of the city.
I might add one thing here. You're saying that that's on the right-of-way, because I don't have that in the sign itself is on the right-of-way?
The existing structure. So
Right.
in the picture there, those pictures, those structures are on the city's right-of-way, as I understand it, from the developer. And so we would be affixing the letters to that. And I believe that on the first page of our application on special exception, Chapter 59, et cetera, it does say existing structure is upon city right-of-way. Sign will be affixed to existing structure above right-of-way. So that is in our original application as an item there.
We just need to amend
No, well,
technically.
we're going to have to re-notify, because this was not noticed for right-of-way. This was only noticed for height.
164th right away?
Just going to have to send out a new notice.
The right away for 164th?
No, it's the right-of-way for the road.
For Brookhaven?
Into, yes.
Also
So I'm
6th Street?
standing on 164th Street taking this photo.
Right.
So there is nothing encroaching in the right-of-way of 164th. The structures, my understanding from the developer is that that's a dedicated street going into the development.
Yeah,
And-
typically.
And therefore, those structures are built over the right-of-way, and the sign hence would be over, I don't know the name of that road, I believe it's Brookfield.
Brookfield, I think, yeah.
I believe it is Brookfield. And so it would be encroaching on the right-of-way of Brookfield, but not on 164th.
Well, if I'm understanding Mr. Wilson correctly, I think we need to continue this to
Right.
provide notice for the right-of-way variance.
I think I confused myself with the artist rendering because it's got gates on it, and to me, that would mean a private road and not city.
Gotcha. Okay.
Straightened out now.
I need to also check and see if being on the right-of-way of a private road is the same as being on the right-of-way of a public road. I don't know at this, right now, I don't know, but I know I've got to re-notice it if the
It's a
code
public
calls
street.
for that. If it doesn't call for it, we at least need to continue it to make that, decide whether it does require that or not.
Okay. So just so I'm clear and understand, there's a question of private road or dedicated city street, true? For this street right here?
Well, it's dedicated as a private road.
Okay. So-
We do variances for signs that are on public right-of-way. I'm not positive about private right-of-way, and I would like to check that before we do anything else on this, up to the board.
We need to take at least a review at this, and we cannot make a decision today.
Certainly.
So we could move for one continuance for a short period of time, and then with the understanding, or what would you recommend?
I would suggest we can continue it to the next meeting if I find that we don't have to notice for private road, then we could just hear it on that date. If we have to renotice it, it'll have to get continued to another date.
Another date certain. So that would be January 18th. Is what
I'm
we-
sorry, say that date again,
The
please?
next date is January 18th.
18.
I'd move that we continue this matter to let the city staff review it.
I'll second. January 17th.
18th, I think.
17th, sorry.
Next month would be our next meeting. For
Okay.
sure, February. It's a February date, I don't know. I
January
have to look at my
17th.
phone to know the,
The next meeting date after January 17th will be February 7th.
Yeah, February 7th.
I can find out between now and the 17th whether this is required or not. If it's not required, then we'll go ahead and hear it again. If
On
it
the
is
17th.
required, we'll renotice it and have to continue it at the next meeting.
Understand? Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second, continue it to January 17th, is that correct? Okay, let's vote. Motion passed, it's continued to January 17th.
Thank you for your time.
February
Item
February 7th would be, for the record anyways, continued.
I think he was going to try to squeeze it in by January 17th. And then,
we're looking at January 17th. I can make the decision on whether it needs to send out a new notice.
Okay.
If it doesn't need a new notice sent out,
Then
we
we'll
can
go
hear
February
it.
7th. Okay.
If it does, then we're going to have to continue it again. Item number 5, case number 14555, request for variance to the use of gravel in place of hard surface paving in the I-2 Moderate Industrial District located at 4241 Southwest 31st Street.
Okay,
Good afternoon. I'm Lee Gross. I live at 10,500 South Harvey Avenue, Oklahoma City. And we're applying for a variance to gravel the east end of the fenced parking lot there on Southwest 31st and Atoka. Reason we're asking for this is that occasionally we've got some extra cars that come in there. They've been parking on the grass. I think right now there's probably 10 or 11 of them, which isn't a big deal, but if it's muddy or something like that, when we come back onto the asphalt parking lot, we've got mud on the tires and the cars sometimes have to be washed again. So we would like to be able to put gravel down on that other piece of property. It would solve the problem of getting mud on the tires of the cars.
before I have a question. Could you do it, instead of having gravel, do something like pave it instead of having gravel? And how much gravel is being used in that area? And also unfavorable considerations you need to address would be that homes lie south of the site across Southwest 31st Street. So just need you to address why gravel would be the particular material you would use.
Well, if it got to the point where we had a lot of overflow extra, that would certainly be wise to go ahead and asphalt it. But right now, we don't have that amount of usage. The existing lot is doing a good job. And there are occasions, it depends on Oklahoma City and what's coming into the airport and with the tourists, what's going on, that the extra new cars that come into that area that are put out for rent. And there are just occasions that we have some extra cars that we were wanting to have a spot where we could park on occasionally without using the existing lot.
Board members, questions?
It seems a little excessive to me. I mean, it's 114,000 square feet to get just a couple of overflow cars in. I mean, it just seems like that's more than a couple of just occasional cars to me.
Well, it depends on what's in Oklahoma City.
mean,
Certain tourist things come in. There might be a whole lot of cars moved to this area for the airport. Certain business occasions that come in, certain times of the year, more cars are brought in. And then the other times, we don't need the cars.
I know this particular one has a lot of trucks, because I've rented trucks from there before. So, they're bigger.
Now, the rental trucks are on South Meridian. They come in on the two drives on Meridian to Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Okay.
The back lot is there. I don't know if you've been out to look at it or not. It's real nice. It's fenced, it's landscaped, and those are only cars. There have been a few trucks out there, but they're small pickups and things like that. It's just overflow for passenger cars mostly.
So, just to kind of convey my thoughts, I am always hesitant to grant a variance like this into perpetuity, not knowing what the use is going to be like in 10 or 20 years. I think it's reasonable to try to accommodate this request for a period of time. I think maybe for a period of 3 to 5 years until you can kind of better grasp whether you need to pave it or not.
Well, Samuel, you're right. In 5 years from now, if we needed to asphalt it, we'd have at least a gravel base down, which would be half the problem solved. And I don't see a problem with that. We Enterprise has grown with the city. It's been a good asset for the city, and we're trying to do things right. That's why we're here.
I could, if there's no other comment or anyone here to speak on this, I mean, I would move for approval. Actually, I'll just make the motion. I move for approval of the variance subject to condition of 5 years in application 14555.
I would second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the variance for a period of 5 years.
I think that's reasonable.
And so we're going to take a vote on that. So let's vote on the motion. We passed.
Yeah, thank you.
Been granted for 5 years.
Thank you, Board. Appreciate it.
Item number 6, case number 14556, request for a variance to the 25-foot front yard setback in the C3 Community Commercial District located at 13401 North Indiana Avenue.
And I have a conflict on this case, so I'll recuse.
We have someone recusing because of conflict, so we will be down to just 3 board members, and and we have one other one missing, so you have a right to, you might consider wanting to go to a continuance where we'd have 4 members. We would still have 1 member recusing. So it's up to you. Would you like to go ahead and present today and have a vote today?
Yes, I would.
Thank you. If you'll present, thank you.
I'm Michael Norden. I'm here for the applicant, 211 North Robinson. The applicant is SS Chisholm Creek LLC. It owns a self-storage facility near Penn and Memorial. In connection with a recent refinancing, it was discovered that a corner of the building encroaches into the 25-foot setback by about a foot. The building was constructed more than 22 years ago. The property is in good shape. In fact, it looks nice. I have pictures if you're interested. Remedying the encroachment would require severing a corner of the building, which would be expensive and affect the use of the building. There's no adverse consequences from the encroachment. The property looks nice. It has no adverse effect on the public or the neighboring property owners. And again, it's been there for more than 22 years. It seems that a variance in this case, because of a mistake that's been overlooked for a long time, would be appropriate.
I have no questions. I would just weigh in and ask any other board members if they have any questions, but it seems to me this would meet the requisites for a variance.
Pretty cut and dry to me. I'd make a big deal out of a foot and an inch. Been there for 20 years.
I'd move for approval of the variance.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for the variance to the 25-foot yard setback. Take a vote, please. And the variance has been granted.
Thank you.
Item number 7, Case number 14557, request for a variance to the 25-foot front yard, sorry about that. Item number 8, case number 14558, application for a special exception to allow an RV campground and a variance to 3 conditions. 1, the site shall not abut nor be within 300 feet of a residential district other than an AA district. 2, in the AA district there shall be a landscape buffer strip with depth of at least 50 feet along the perimeter of the site. And 3, the buffer strip shall contain no roads or drives, RV spaces, or buildings, other types of structures except for site-proof screening. Now 3, site-proof screening shall be provided around all sides of the site except for traversed by driveways in the AA agricultural district, located at 600 Southwest 134th.
John, did you skip 14557?
I think we have an error in the number here. Let's see.
I apologize. I thought I was reading the same one again. It was a 25-foot. All right.
Yeah.
Case number 14557, request for a variance to the 25-foot front yard setback building in the site triangle and the use of gravel for parking surface in the I-2 Moderate Industrial District located at 2627 West Reno Avenue. Apologize.
Yes, sir. My name's Rob Elliott with Elliott Architects in Oklahoma City. Our office address is 900 Northwest 6th Street. And we have been helping Penley Oil Company at their facility on West Reno, where they're hoping to build a new warehouse on the property that they own just north of their existing facility. And in a most efficient site plan, we've determined that we would like help with a variance for the positioning of their new warehouse, and also a variance for their siting on the corner that would obstruct the site triangle in the zoning code. We also had in the variance the request for variance of hard surface paving, and maybe you outsmarted ourselves in that I think that the yard that they use right now is a gravel surface, and I don't think that the building permit review had a comment about changing that, other than making sure that our access to the new parking that's required was paved. So we plan on doing a lot of paving, just not the entire yard for the storage facility, which is why I include the gravel.
You also provided a site sort of triangle plan, did you not?
For the site triangle observation?
On the issue of the site triangle,
Yes,
did
ma'am.
you all do an additional exhibit that was not in the original packet? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you could address that too as well.
Well, yes. Upon conversation with John, he indicated that would be an important consideration of the board. So we prepared the computer graphic in terms of what the site triangle, site approaching vehicles may actually observe from the site triangle that would be impacted by the location of the building. We still are maintaining the 5-foot setbacks of the ordinance from the property lines, but that would still impede somewhat on the 25-foot traffic site triangle.
With respect to the use of gravel, why are you wanting to use gravel again? I didn't see the need for gravel there personally.
Yes, ma'am. It's what's existing there and in most of the places around the neighborhood. To that fact, I don't think that our building permit review has required us to pave the entire storage area. I'll double check that, but I don't think that was a requirement.
A bit of it will be taken up by the building anyway, right? quite a bit will be taken
Yes,
up
ma'am,
by your
8,000 feet.
addition of the
Yes, ma'am.
building.
How-
Board members?
How big
anybody?
is the area requested for the gravel? Just ballpark.
Yeah, let's say 3 lots, maybe. 75 by 140.
I didn't see a lot of gravel out in that area myself, but I didn't inspect all of them, but I was looking around, and that particular location, I did not see a lot of gravel at that location.
18 lots
Because
total,
it's off
right?
Reno, huh?
That 18 lots total for your property?
I'm sorry?
I was just trying to count the lots to get an idea. Three, and I think there's.
Yeah,
15.
it's on this one, this diagram, the I-2. The Penley Oil owns the frontage on Reno and to the north of them also. So I would think at least 3, perhaps 4 of the lots on California would be the accessible area.
Okay.
The other lots would be taken by the building and landscape.
Staff reported on the favorable considerations. The gravel storage lots are common in the area, and noted that the California Avenue carries a minimum amount of traffic and terminates 1 block to the east. The unfavorable consideration was dealing with the evidence that it would not create a site obstruction, but you have provided subsequent information that would answer that question and to let us know that the site would be available and it would not totally obstruct. So
Yes, sir.
I think we've resolved that you've resolved the unfavorable consideration based on what you've presented, but I will defer to board members on questions or anything.
I guess, can you just help me understand the extent of the variance for the setback that we would be granting?
Yes, the right-of-way along California, there's actually a platted, the zoning ordinance would require us a 5-foot setback from a rear yard. Actually, we have a front yard on California and a front yard on Reno, because there's a platted 25-foot building line along California. So it's that 25-foot setback building line along California that we're hoping to take back to what the zoning ordinance would require for I-3 property, I-2 property, 5 feet.
Yeah, I mean, I think the strongest thing going for the application is just the area that it's in, and this seems like it kind of conforms with the area. I think there are a lot of questions on the gravel. I was a bit hesitant on the gravel. It did seem like a pretty substantial portion of gravel, but that's kind of the standard in the area. I can again get on board with that, so I'd support the application.
I'd move approval of the variance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the variance and case number 14557 to the 25-foot yard setback, building in the site triangle, and the use of gravel for the parking service. And cast your votes.
Thank you.
The variance has been granted.
Now we'll go with item 8, case number 14558, application for a special exception to allow an RV campground and variances to the conditions. There's 3 of them. The site shall not abut nor be within 300 feet of the residential district other than a AA district. 2, in the AA district, there shall be a landscape buffer strip with a depth of at least 50 feet along the perimeter of the site. The buffer strip shall contain no roads or drives, RV spaces, or buildings or other types of structures except for site-proof screening. 3, Site-proof screening shall be provided around all sides of the site except where traversed by driveways in the AA Agricultural District located at 600 Southwest 134th.
My name is Perry Streben. I'm with Search Incorporated, where our office is at 6730 East Cedar Lane in Norman, and we're representing Mr. Sean Nemo and the Rose Legacy LLC. Mr. Nemo's family has owned this property since the 1960s. His grandfather built the existing Cedar Lakes Mobile Home Park, and the city of Oklahoma City has moved in around it, and it is a non-compliant mobile home park. It won't meet the existing regulations, and we cannot expand it. So what we're asking for is the ability to build a RV park on the south side of it. Mr. Nemo's family owns all the property to the south and to the east of it, and so we're trying to build this in an area that abuts his property and the existing mobile home park. Along Southwest 134th Street, there is a fence. It's a 6 feet tall concrete block fence that blocks everything from 134th Street. The vast majority of the area of the new park, we have a 50-foot buffer, except for on the west side, the little strip there on the 4 lots on the very west side. We have a 50-foot buffer there, but it's against an AA, so we think that's okay. But we don't have a fence around the whole thing. The only thing we have a fence around is the top part. We have a 300-foot buffer around everything, around most everything, except for there's a residential area on the north side of 134th Street. And we are 300 feet away, the RV lots are 300 feet away from that to the back fence. But that's just cutting it pretty close.
That's on the other side of that fence also, right? Correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
That's on the other side of that fence on 134th Street.
134th.
The residential is on the other side of that.
Yeah, single-family homes. Yeah. So.
Isn't there a church that, with the exception of the large church, the subject property is owned by the applicant and the applicant's family? Is that correct?
Yes, on the west side there is a church, but it's all zoned AA. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time. I heard better back there. So, but anyway, I think that's all. We have some graphics that kind of show the 300 foot and things like that. If you'd like to, I think they're in your packet.
There are certain requirements that have to be met, but no unfavorable considerations have been identified. But on the special exception approval, it's in harmony with the comprehensive plan, determined that, is that correct? And the general purpose of the intent of the applicable zoning districts, and of these 7 criteria, does it meet, other than any assurances that we might make, does it meet the other requisites for the granting of a special exception?
Yes, it does. Just not the 3 that were for the variance.
Right. Trying to think, is there something that we could or should require to make sure we don't have too many activities going on and other things in this location, and to ensure that we won't have any hazards of other conditions or anything like that? Do we have any requirements or anything that we think we should require to this?
Can I make one other statement?
Yes.
Mr. Nemo and the existing mobile home park, they cater to a lot of people with motorhomes and things like that. And over the last several years, they've had people that have RVs, bigger RVs that come in and they work in Oklahoma City for temporary amounts of time. And they kind of move in and out over several months. So this is a monthly facility. They only rent things for the month. It's not going to be a weekend facility where people come in with tents and small trailers. This will be large RVs with, 2 or 3 people, and the intent is to have a place available so they could come in and live for 2 or 3 months or a year or even 2 or 3 years. So that's it. It's not going to be a place where people set up tents and come in for the weekend and do things like that.
So your clients own, from this Rose Avenue, is it everything north and west of that, or is it even to the south of that?
The Rose Legacy LLC, Mr. Nemo's company, owns all the property on the west and the east sides of that. He owns 66 acres that are to the east and to the south of that existing property.
I can support the application.
Board members, comments or questions?
No, I mean, the owner owning everything around there. Yeah, I can support it.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve application 14558 for the special exception and for the 3 variances requested in the special exception.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the application for special exception and the variance on the conditions that have been recited in the preamble in the staff report, and also with the understanding this is not going to be where you have parties and dancing and kind of thing, and it's going to be where the people come for a month or maybe for a longer period of time. And so we're ready to take a vote now.
Thank you.
Your special exception was granted.
Thank you very much.
Item number 9, case number 14559, request for a variance to the required site-proof screening and landscape buffer between C3 and AA zone property located at 12,860 Northwest 10th Street.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Gray with Craft and Toll, representing the applicant, 300 Point Parkway. We found ourselves in a unique situation where the city of Yukon owns the access, is the authority for the access to Northwest 10th Street. And because of their purview there, they dictated that our driveway had to line up with an existing driveway to the north coal site. So we've adjusted that, and in the process of doing our permitting, we found that we had a glitch with a screening that we didn't realize with our access road. And so I'm here today asking for a variance to that screening requirement. The surrounding property to the east and the south will eventually be developed as commercial property, as such as the area, and I'm asking for approval of the variance.
Is there anyone here that wants to speak on this?
Seems like you're just caught between 2 jurisdictional requirements. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What was called in the old days, the old we woke a switch or whatever. Maybe I'm too old for making that comment. But anyway, it looks like this would be in order to approve. That would be mine.
I'd move approval.
I mean, my only hesitation is the minimum necessary to alleviate the hardship. The minimum necessary would be not a variance, or a variance to only the portion that's needed. But given that the surrounding area, I think I agree with you, it's going to be developed, and that screening probably doesn't make sense. In that instance, I can support the application, and I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second, so let's vote. Your variance was granted.
Thank you.
Item number 10, case number 14560, request for a variance to the minimum 5-acre lot size in the AA Agricultural District located at 1308 Southwest 149th Street.
Hi, I'm Joshua Vanover. I'm here for address 1308 Southwest 149th Street. I bought some land recently in hopes that me and my brother, who's back here actually, can build on it together. It's actually only, I think, 0.3 less than the required 5 acres. It's 5-acre plots. It's, I think, 9.7. And so what we are requesting is that we can just build a house on one full 5-acre plot, so everything would be fine with that one. We're just asking for a variance that he can build on the 4.7, and we'll uphold all the rest of the requirements and everything that is needed to be built. We just want to live next to each other. And it's kind of where we grew up, so we found land there, and it was a unique opportunity for us to buy.
Before I'll open up for questions, but we do have an individual, Dan Croney, who sent something in.
Yes, ma'am. I don't think he's here, but I read that.
Is Dan here? No.
And just to what he said, I actually had the recommendation of the civil engineer, Ross Morris. This was the prescribed lot split that made the most sense for usable land. So a tornado came through, as we all know, back several years ago. This land was actually plotted before that period of time, so they rezoned where that creek is to a flood zone area. So splitting it down the middle we would not be able to do that and build houses because of the flood zone in the back. So the way that we have it split, that we're suggesting it to be split, is the only way that we can split it and be able to build both houses, and we still meet the requirements of the frontage of the road and everything of that nature. What he suggested, I understand because he hasn't done the research on it, but it's just impossible to do right down the middle.
Are there other people here wanting to speak on this matter?
This is my brother's here. I'm Jonathan Vanover, same address. I just want to speak a little bit because I work pretty closely with Ross, and they did suggest, the complaint was that they wanted to split right down the middle, and in conversation with Ross, I'm not a professional at any of this, so I went to a professional, and I said, hey man, what is the most possible way, what's the most probable way where we can split this, and it'll be, if we have to sell it, it'll be good for resale, and everything like that, it'll be usable, and he said, I'll draw something up for you. When he drew that up, we submitted it immediately. So that lot split is recommended from him. It's not something that we came up with. It's already been surveyed and submitted.
Is there any way we could see that? It's not in my packet.
It would. I can find a lot split for you. I was under the impression that it was submitted. I'm sorry.
If you have documentation of experts who've opined in this area, we would appreciate copies of that.
Yes, ma'am.
For our review.
From my own perspective, if you could have someone, and if you have documentation there, we can look at that, but that would be helpful for us.
Speak. I know you can't. You're really.
He's handing off that is signed off by the engineer. That's the 5-acre tract and the 4-acre tract. So that's how it would be split, right there that I just handed you guys.
So, well, one question. You mentioned 9.7, 9.7 something.
I'm sorry, it was 4.49, I guess, is what it actually
Okay, gotcha. I just want to clarify that. Just
yes.
Not that it's a huge difference, but the percentage of what
I understand, yes.
Approving. And the other thing is kind of for the board and or for Mr. Wilson, municipal councilor, but I'm not sure that how it's split, other than just being instructive, really is binding on our decision. I see our decision as just can you get a variance to the size regardless of how they split it up?
Right. If
And
we need
so
to
if it-
change that, I will. I mean, whatever we got to do to make it work, we will.
Well, I'm kind of saying something in your favor and against the protestant. I think that this, the protest goes as a consideration of if there's some kind of hardship on the surrounding neighbors and things like that. But ultimately, all I see is 5 acres, not 5 acres, do you need a variance? How it's split up really doesn't factor in at a technical level from my perspective. And so I think that tips in your favor.
I would tend to agree with you. My only issue with respect to that is if there is a legitimate reason that it has to be split in a different way because of the topography of the property. That's, and that's why I'm interested in what the engineer thinks. Or the engineer.
Also to be sure you have access to the two parcels.
Correct. We both have 150 feet of roadside access, and then we have a road built down the middle as well that we'll both be on. I mean, neither one of us plan on selling, but as we all know, things happen in life. So we just wanted, if for any reason we had to sell, we had 2 portions of property where he could sell his and I could sell mine if we needed to do that. Then that's the only reason we're doing this.
Well, I think the fact it had to be split because of existing conditions of the creek
The reason it had to be split.
Basis for how you would do it, and the variance is a minimal request. I do think the extra information that we're being provided is helpful to us too.
Yeah, essentially all we're requesting is just that we can build on, because agricultural, it says you have to have a minimum of 5 acres. So we're just essentially asking, can we build on 4.49 instead of 5? That's what we're asking.
I just wanted to see it just out of curiosity because I'm a surveyor.
Yeah, I understand that, as well as it guiding and being informative. I mean, if someone's going to be landlocked or something because of what we grant, it might be nice to know that. But that's not the case. And in addition to that, I think we would just grant based on size alone and not particular configuration. Absent other people wanting to speak on this motion, I move for approval of application 14560.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve 14560. Let's vote on it. Cast your vote.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
It's
it.
granted.
We have item number 11.
Thank you, John.
Case number 14561, request for a variance to the condition that if a non-conforming use ceases for more than 2 years, the property will conform to the current code in the I-1 Light Industrial District located at 2829 West California Avenue.
Oh, my name is Ahmed Sagiruddin, and I own the property. And we tried to lease the property.
Your address, please.
The city went to the zoning department, and they said there is a no beer license issued. So that's the reason we have to reapply for the zoning purpose, to selling the beer on the property. That property has been selling beer last, I think, 50 years. It used to be club all the time at that corner of California and Reno.
Before I ask any questions, I don't think I heard you giving us your address.
Oh, my home address?
You need your address.
My name is Ahmed Sagiruddin, and home address is 15216 Worthington Lane, Edmond, Oklahoma.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I have some questions.
Sure.
Off the top of my head, I don't see how this meets the requisites for a variance, but especially to this type of condition, it's a non-conforming use which apparently had ceased more than 2 years. Now the question, I have several questions. I have one of John. Is there another option that would be available for them other than the variance?
There is another option. It would be for a special permit that would go through Planning Commission and City Council. That's the other option they could take.
That would seem what should be done in this case, but I do have specific questions on when did you have a fire, or when did it become
Oh,
unable
the
to
fire was
operate?
when, it was a long time ago, but in 2016 we have a roof damage. There is a big thunderstorm there, messed our roof at that alley on the 2016. All the electrical pole fell down and the roof, everything. So we had to issue with the insurance, and the insurance paid a little bit of money because of the depreciation. So then we accumulated the fund and repair. And after repair, we found the tenant. At that time, the liquor law has been changed 2018, in the July, because city says that you have to have a compliance before you submit to the ABLE Commission. So my tenant wasn't qualified, maybe their reason, so they backed out. So we have a new tenant, and they want to pursue the case, and selling the beer at that locations.
So have you considered having the tenant pursue the special permit?
Yes, they went to the city, and I went to the city with them, and they said because it's not been beer license issued long time, so you have to reapply again for the variance. So that's what we did. The application submits in December.
So are you saying that the city sent you here? You tried the special permit, and they sent you here? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we processed the, I think, $1,250 application process.
Okay.
And they said you have to go through the chamber and then get the variance issues.
Can you provide a timeline for me? Just because the timeline here isn't clear, and this is such a time-sensitive ordinance that you're trying to get a variance from, I think the timeline matters. So 2002, there was a fire, correct?
No, that fire was there, and then after that we bought it. And it was at 2-3 years. After 2 years, I think the gentleman sold it to us.
What year was that?
2002 or 3.
Okay.
And it was a closed building.
Okay.
Then our builders, the contractor took the city, and he established with the city to permits issues, and this complied all the rules, regulations, and we did. And then after that, business was open. But 2016.
What was it at that point?
The club.
And did they serve alcohol or not?
No alcohol, just beer. It's a beer pool hall club. They play the pools and the singing musics and selling beer 3.2.
Okay. And then after that?
They continues, the people in and out, 2 years lease, 3 years lease, then they go out of business, or they sold it to somebody, then they keep hand change.
So at what point were you out of compliance with this zoning ordinance?
The tenant went there, and I noticed in August, this last 2018 August, and they said the new law is changed in Oklahoma because of 3.2 to 6 beer, so you have to go apply in ABLE commissions. So those, the county beverage license is null and void, and they went to the ABLE commission and applied, and then they have a big portfolio to meet all the requirements, and then went to the city, and they said, no, we didn't have any city permit, so you have to go apply for the variance and things. So.
And that's because the law changed?
Both similarity, law change, and then otherwise they can get the license from the county and get the city permits, city and health department and tax commissions.
Because it was only 3.2 beer, right? We don't have that anymore. It was only 3.2 beer at the time?
Yes, sir.
License? Right.
6 started in October. October 1st, I believe, they started 6-point alcohol in October.
Yeah, we don't have 3.2 anymore.
I have a question. It said you had a liquor license that expired in 2013. Is that correct?
I don't know, this was my tenant. I didn't run the business, you know.
Well, the facts show that there may have been expiration in 2000. John, I'm going to defer to you on some of the facts situation here.
Well, we showed that the beer license expired in 2013. Now, it might have had county license, but not a Oklahoma City license.
You may have had a county license, but your beer license with the city at that time expired in 2013 and was never renewed. Is that correct?
I did not know there's a tenant. I never checked it because since
That's correct.
this time when we went there, they said the problem issued.
So is this the tenant's responsibility? Or, I mean, why is the landlord now here instead of the tenant? Or is he, and does this apply to a tenant that comes in and takes over?
All the licensing issue is the tenant responsibility. License and business insurance and state and federal law complied with the...
Well, I guess that still leaves my question is, then why are you here, not a tenant?
Why I here? Because they said they don't want to pursue it. You know, they said, if you can do it, then we can stay in business. Otherwise, we're not going to renew the lease, you know. And since we are the property owner, you know, I'm the property owner, so I have to keep the property.
So it looks like at some point a tenant dropped the ball, and in order to make this property marketable to anyone, he'd like to remove it out of the tenant's responsibility and take care of it himself. That's what.
But the use or whatever it's running, and he's asking for a variance to a non-conforming use that has expired. And this is very unusual. You have a non-conforming use to begin with, and then it expired. And now he's asking us to extend that non-conforming use, to apply it to this establishment. The actual obligation
And not for himself. And not for himself.
Well, but it's for being able to use that property for that purpose, and it would run with the property as well, you know, whether he's doing it for himself or not. But
I guess what works in his favor, though, is it's been used for that purpose for 50 years. And so I'm not so sure I'm
because if the
opposed to allowing
property,
it to continue.
you know, if no establishment, no business is there, it's going to be deteriorated, and, you know, vandalism and everything
I mean,
happened.
that, I think also weighs in his favor. I'm trying to kind of contemplate what else could go in there. If it's been a bar for, you know, or a club or whatever.
Without being rezoned?
Yeah,
Don't know.
or just practically, what else?
It's I-1, right? Brewery?
I would ask the municipal counselor's office to make any comment regarding the application and who it's for and its effect on the use of that property.
Any kind of licensing would be the business owner's responsibility to go to ABLE and get. ABLE requires a certificate of compliance from the city.
Yes.
Sign off on the zoning and any other licensing requirements, payment of occupational taxes, those kinds of things. Previously, under the old state laws, I'm assuming what was called like a beer bar, and they were able to get the county license and then also a city license. But it seems as though, at least since 2013, and maybe previously too, I don't know when the last time was they had a city license. So when these things fall out of compliance, then they lose their non-conforming status.
And they have other options. They have an option of going for the special permit, like with a review.
Well, he told us that they've tried that and they sent him over here. And so I'm not sure if he does have that option.
Have to have proof of that application.
I know last time we sent it to Planning Commission, I got in trouble. My staff.
No, I went to the zoning department. The lady handed us the paper that just said, you need to apply today because the deadline was there. And then we did.
I can only say that I had nothing to do with the application portion. I don't think I dealt with the applicant here. So I'm not going to say who said what or who did what. That wasn't me, so I can't say.
And for what it's worth, under our new zoning ordinance, any new bars in the city are required to get special permits before they're able to operate. It's not it is a zoning process, but it's different than our previous ABC overlay process, which ran with the land and then would stay indefinitely. The special permit enables the Planning Commission and City Council to place additional conditions on that particular use at that location.
So, I mean, I think particularly to satisfy the chair, if we could have some documentation around that process, because especially given this and the new statutes and the new ordinances in general, I'm hesitant to kind of go awry of any of that whenever, if this were a new bar, you would need a special permit. It doesn't really make
It's
sense.
not a new bar, it's been
No,
there.
but I'm just saying by analogy, if it were, clearly that's the city's intent, is to require special permits. And so if they kicked you here, I'd like to know a little bit more about that, and if it's possible to go back there, I think that might be more appropriate. So maybe continuing this and getting some more information is kind of where I stand on this.
And same.
If you could you, I think that I've heard January 17th, could you be here for the January 17th meeting and provide some more information about that special permit process and the interplay between all these new laws and regulations that you're having to comply with? Would you need more time to do that?
Because I don't have the application form that the tenant did. I saw their application, they bring it back,
It should be public record, I would think.
Because the ABIL Commission wants the clearance from the city of the zoning department.
Well, I can say that there has been no application made for a special permit. I believe it might have been suggested, and this was the option that was taken. There again, I wasn't in that conversation, but that's kind of what I've heard.
I'd like to agree with, I'd like to see some more information.
I'll tell you, I want to support you, that's for sure. I mean, I don't want that building to go there unused and whatever purpose you
Because
want to use
the
it
tenant
for.
says if it is not, we can sell the beer and the club, so why I'm renting from, so that's
I understand,
your
yeah.
responsibility to, the zoning complies,
Yeah, I understand that.
Are you available for January 17th if we continue to January 17th to get more information? Will you be available that
So you're going to let us know in writing what information we need, or if you can tell me, I can take a note.
Sure, yeah. I mean, really just, at least from my perspective, I know the chair had some concerns as well, and then the rest of the board, but any information you have about attempts to get a special permit or a reason why that was denied or not pursued, and then any documentation that you have that would further explain to us the hardship that I think might be there, but I just don't honestly quite understand it, around the interplay with all these different new laws that have been passed. So you've got different city ordinances, you've got zoning codes you got to comply with, you've got state law that's changed, you've got a lot of different things that have changed, and I don't currently feel comfortable that I have an understanding of how all that applies to your situation. I think there might be something here. I'm kind of analogizing to the golf course situation where a lot of the golf courses went through some problems with their liquor law changes. So if you can make that more clear for me, that would make me more comfortable. And then I don't speak for the rest of the board, but
Also, the timeframes that you're referring to what different things occurred, because you were, so if you could give us that in connection with the timeframes of when those things occurred. Thank you very much.
So on common 17th, what time? 1:30?
1:30. I'd move to continue case number 14561 to the January 17th meeting.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to continue to January 17th. Let's vote. The item is continued to January 17th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.